This device is unusual, not because it can convert text on screen into braille. We've actually had devices that can do this for many years. These devices, known as refreshable braille displays, have generally only contained a single line of braille. That would be like having a monitor for your computer that could only show you a single line of print at a time. However, I don't want to understate the difference these devices have made, because refreshable braille displays have and continue to completely change the lives of blind people, and they give us so much more access than we would otherwise have had. However, there are limitations to only being able to see one line at a time. If you're reading a single line of braille, you don't really see the structure of a page as you would if you were reading hard copy. I'm sure if those of you who are print readers can imagine what it would be like only to see that single line of print. You get the gist of what's being said and you can read along, but you don't see the overall structure. Well, this device, the DotPad X, is unusual because it is a multi-line braille display. There are only a few of these around. The device made by Dot is one of them, and there's also a device made by Humanware called the Monarch, as well as a slightly different device called the Canute, which is made by Bristol Braille. So multi-line braille displays do exist, but they are still relatively new, and by having a dot pad, I can read more than one line at a time. So let's take a look at it in action. I'll start by describing the physical appearance of the device, particularly for those of you who are blind who are watching this. It is essentially a rectangular device that is in a small case, and it fits nicely on top of my desk. It only weighs just over 1 kilo, and it's very portable and you can put it in your bag. At the top of the device, there's a rectangular display, and this is where all the braille cells are. This braille display doubles up as one which you can use for reading text, but also a tactile graphics display. On the left of the device, there's a braille letter D, and actually to the side of that, there's a USB-C port. This is the data port. On the right-hand side of the device, there's a braille letter P, and this matches up with the power port. So you've got 2 USB-C ports, one on each side, and they both do slightly different things. Below the USB-C port for power on the right-hand side of the device, there's actually a switch, and this switches the device on and off. Moving down from the display, you have 6 buttons. 4 of these are sort of oval-shaped buttons, and these are the 4 in the middle. They are the function buttons, and they are labelled F1 to F4, and both F1 and F4 have a small tactile line on them. To the left, there's a triangular button pointing leftwards, and to the right, there's another triangle pointing right. These are the panning buttons. Below that, there's actually another small braille display. This is just a single line of 20 cells, and this display is used for a few different things. If you, for example, had a tactile graphic on the big graphics display up above, you might have a label on this bottom display. So you can use it for kind of navigating tactile graphics, but also perhaps if you're doing something on your phone, you might be showing different text on that bottom display. So it's kind of flexible in that sense. You can pair the DotPad with a few different devices, including phones and computers, and you can certainly pair it with an iPhone and a PC, because I have both of these and I've paired it successfully with iOS and also with both JAWS and NVDA on Windows. So it has very good flexibility and it does work well with all of these, though with every screen reader it works slightly differently, because the screen reader drives the display. So depending on how each screen reader chooses to handle the DotPad and the nature of multi-line braille, you'll see slightly different results, but it does work well on both. Right now I have the DotPad paired with my phone and I'm in the Kindle app. So for those of you who can see, you'll notice that there are now lots and lots of dots that have popped up on the device, and this is the Kindle book I'm reading. So I can literally reach my hands up to the top of it and start to read in Braille. And this is great because I'm not just relying on a single line and having to pan forward and backwards within the book after each line. I can literally read several lines at a time, then press one of these buttons on the bottom of the device, and we're going to go forward, and you'll see the whole thing refreshes. And if I keep doing this, we're going forward and I'm completely losing my place in my books by doing this, but that's okay. So every time I finished reading the lines on the display, press this button and then we'll go forward again. And this makes it really, really easy to read Kindle books, and it's actually probably one of the best uses I found for the dot pad. I initially got the dot pad because I was really excited about the tactile graphics capabilities, but I have to say, just being able to sit and read a braille book with multiple lines and not have to have a physical braille book with lots and lots of volumes of braille has made a massive difference for me personally, and I think it just works so well with the Kindle app on my phone, and it makes it a really easy setup. So this is one amazing use of the device that I have personally found really helpful. I mentioned there are some issues with the tactile graphics on the dot pad, and that is and isn't true. I think in some ways my expectations were too high, and I thought I should be able to send any photo to the dot pad and view it as a tactile graphic. The reality is we are just not there yet. Although it does display tactile graphics quite well, I can't send it a really complex image or bring it up on my phone and have it displayed on the dot pad, so there's still a way to go in that sense. But there are ways I can view tactile graphics, and actually I can view them and check on something I'm working on. One way is to draw them by hand in dot canvas. I don't find this the most effective way, but I'll show you how that works later on. The second way is to generate an image and then have it converted into a tactile format. And again, you can use dot apps on Windows for this, and I use this in conjunction with ChatGPT. I know there are issues with using AI to generate images, but it's one of the only ways I can create an image to my specifications as someone who is blind. So I've asked ChatGPT to generate an image of a house for me. I specifically requested a black on white, very simplistic line drawing, and I'll just show it on screen for a few seconds. For those of you who can see, you've seen this image of a house, and now I'm going to go over to the dot canvas apps on Windows, and I'm going to try and convert this into a tactile format. So there's an option called image to tactile, and it essentially opens up just the file viewer on Windows. So I will open up this file, and then it has opened up on my dot pad. So I can feel the image that's been created here, and I can feel there's a simple kind of like rectangular outline of a house. And if I bring my fingers up, I can feel the curved roof at the top, very like triangular shaped roof. There's something over to the right hand side, which I suspect, given that it's on the roof, is probably a chimney. It's just a little like rectangle. And then there's no windows that I can feel in the house, but there is a big rectangle at the bottom, which seems like a door. So this is just an image that I, asked ChatGPT to make. And then when I uploaded it into this, it's been converted into a tactile form. And that is in itself amazingly helpful. If I was using ChatGPT for image generation for something and I wanted to check on the progress of it and see actually, is this what I want it to be? The dot pad isn't a perfect solution, and you're kind of limited by the size of the tactile graphics display, but it does give me so much more than I would otherwise have had. There are two ways I can draw on the dot pad that I know of. The first is to use a touchscreen device and either drag my finger or something like an Apple Pencil across the screen. And by using the dot canvas app and my iPad or iPhone, I can draw and then feel the output on the dot pad. Now the issue with this is that whilst I can feel the output on the dot pad, if I lift my hand from the touchscreen and then try to go back, I don't exactly know where to place my fingers to keep on drawing. So it isn't a perfect solution, although I think it works really well if you're a sighted person who is drawing something for a blind person. The second option is to draw on Windows, and it sounds weird to say to use a Windows PC, and well, less so if you're thinking of using it with a mouse, but I can use the keyboard to draw something and view it on the dot pad. So if I open up dot canvas on my dot pad, then if I can feel a tiny little dot in the top left hand corner of the device, that is actually my cursor. So I know where I'm going to start drawing. and I use my keyboard, and if I press the space bar and keep arrowing right and pressing space, then I'm drawing a line on my dot pad, and I can actually reach up and then feel that line and go, okay, that has drawn correctly. So keep going with this line. I think, well, what if I now want to go down? Well, I hit the down arrow and press the space bar, and I'll be drawing a line down from that. So as you can imagine, this is quite a slow process. I wouldn't necessarily want to try and draw something, you know, I guess particularly complicated in this method, because I think it's a bit tricky, but I am actually able to draw using my keyboard and then feel the output on the dot pad. So I've drawn a very sort of a line going across, a line down, and then sort of diagonally going down to the right, a line stretching that way. And then if I keep doing this, and as I'm doing it, the dot pad updates. So I've got a line going horizontally across the top, then a vertical line going down, then to the right, a sort of diagonal line going down, and then again pointing rightwards, a diagonal line going up. And I've just drawn this using my keyboard, so the arrow keys and the space bar. I can change the thickness of the lines. So at the moment, the thickness is set to 1, but if I wanted to set it to 2, it would mean it was 2 dots thick. So by doing that, you can actually, create images with different thicknesses of lines. There is also an eraser, so you can delete what you have drawn as well. And all the while, I've got this cursor that lets me know where I am. So I've drawn this, but I thought, what if, there's this space to the left? What if I wanted to draw a line over here? So I could start moving my cursor around, and then I can feel on the dot pad as I'm pressing the arrows on my keyboard, which you can't see in this video because my keyboard's actually on my lap, but I'm pressing the arrows on my keyboard and it's moving this cursor. So now I'm in a bit of empty space, and I can feel that because this little dot that is my cursor is moving on the dot pad. I'll move my hand out of the way and then start moving these arrows so you can actually see it in action, because whereas my arm was probably blocking, if you're viewing this visually, the view as I move my cursor around. And let's go back to feel where exactly it is now. So here we go. So I've got it here. And what if I wanted to draw another line going all the way to the right from where I am? Well, I can do that. So it is actually quite cool. And I think that I'm not a very creative person, actually. And I know blind people who are way better at tactile graphics and all this sort of thing than I am. But I think if you were someone who was really into this and actually really loved creating and wanted to draw your own stuff, actually this has really great potential because you can actually feel what you're doing. And that's, kind of a cool thing if you're a blind person who's never been able to draw before, and certainly not to draw electronically. So whilst I don't think the dot pad does tactile graphics perfectly, I do think it's actually pretty cool that you can do it at all, because it's something that I've never had access to, and I certainly could never have access to with a single line of braille. So I think that I probably don't make the best use out of my dot pad, if I'm being honest, and I mostly use it, like I said at the very start, for reading Kindle books. That is the use that I found to be most helpful for me and just most effective in general. But I am curious to see how it develops, and actually as more tools are built for it, what more a blind person can do with it. And as AI improves, converting a very cluttered visual image into something that can render into a format that I can feel by touch, I think that it's only going to get better and better. And if we have access to a multi-line braille display, then we've actually got a way of looking at that in real time. And that is a really incredible thing. I hope this very small overview of the dot pad has been interesting in some way and potentially helpful. I know there are probably loads and loads of things I haven't covered. I haven't talked about what the device can do as a standalone device, because the answer is it can't. You need it to be powered by something else, so a computer or a phone. And I'm sure there are other questions I haven't answered. So if you've got questions or comments or thoughts, please do drop them in the comments, because I'm always happy to answer if I can.